Welcome into this episode of the Depths Podcast. I'm your host, Atramentum_X, variety streamer and YouTuber who forgets his name from time to time. We're here tonight talking about the wild world of Teledildonics. What is Teledildonics? We'll explain soon, but our guest here needs actually no introduction, but we're going to have him introduce himself anyway.
Hi, I'm qdot. Apparently, I know things about this topic. I am mostly known these days for running a little software project called Buttplug.io, as well as the interface software on top of that. I've been working in the sex tech industry for almost 20 years at this point, doing different things around computer and internet connected sex toys, games, apps, controls for those sort of things, trying to figure out how user interfaces work for that, things like that. So happy to be here and share my knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. qdot is joining us from VR Chat, is the first guest to join us from virtual reality here in the Depths, and we're excited for that as well. With me, as always, is my co-host, Lady Mystique. Mystique, they know who you are, but why don't you just give us a quick introduction?
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know, I'm Lady Mystique. Atramentum keeps me around because I have a background in sexology, way back when the dinosaurs were young, and it's nice to be on the couch today.
Not the first time she said that, believe it or not. So
I say that to Atra all the time.
So we have two guests here from the Cretaceous period. I'm joking. I'm also from that era. But what definitely is striking, I would say, about qdot is his very lengthy tenure in sex tech, and we are really happy to be able to pick his brain tonight. I'm just being informed that with my sound alerts on. Don't worry, guys, I'll fix it. So why don't we go with a little bit of history? If you would chat, if you know what Second Life is, just let us know real quick. But our question here for qdot is, one of your earliest projects was bringing toy integration to Second Life. In some ways, VR Chat is the modern manifestation of the Second Life phenomenon. Do you see the potential for VRC to have this integration? What should the next iteration of VR Chat look like to you?
So way back in 2005, I created the first sex toy interface to Second Life. So basically, this was just like a little cube you could click, and it would actually cause a res trans vibrator, which for those of you that remember, that was a little PlayStation 2 peripheral. It was a vibrator made specifically for the game Res. So that was kind of like one of the three toys we had back then that would hook up to a computer easily. So you'd click a cube in Second Life and it would route all the commands to actually make that vibrate. So that was really neat and all, but pretty rudimentary. These days, I mean, we're 19 years out from that now. There are full Teledildonics systems in Second Life, full genital control systems, everything else. Sky is really the limit, and people have gone well beyond that. But yeah, that was where we were when I started way back when. These days in VR Chat, there's been toy interfaces for like 4 or 5 years at least. There's like a whole ecosystem of them at this point. So the one that I kind of work with is this thing called OSC Goes Burr. It's an iteration of, there was a program called Vibe Goes Burr, and then VR Chat changed their technology some in terms of how you could get information in and out of VR Chat, and now they use this thing called OSC, which I won't go into it here because it's kind of complicated, but really neat. Anyways, it allows you to like take things that are happening in VR Chat and control things in the outside world with them, which is what OSC Goes Burr does for controlling toys. So I provide them with all of the hardware access that they need, and they use my library so that you can hook different things up on avatars and have actual intimate interaction between the avatars, and it will trigger real life hardware.
Oh, okay. Does that enable... go ahead, Mystique.
Oh, so you work with hardware and software?
Yes, I am kind of all over the place. I have a kind of varied background. I've done everything from video game programming. Like I was employed by Linden Lab on Second Life after the Teledildonics work. So I was an engineer there for a few years. I've done robotics and self-driving car work. I've done firmware work. I worked on web browsers for a little while. So I've been really all over the place. And this project is very much a integration of all of that knowledge across the field of computer mediated and technology mediated intimacy.
Oh, magnum
That's
opus, so to
fascinating.
speak.
Kinda, yeah, yeah.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So I guess this sort of integration with VR chat and Second Life, were you able to trigger someone else's toys or just your own toys, basically, with this sort of technology?
It's someone else's toys, definitely. You
Okay.
can with Second Life, like it could be like avatar proximity and whatnot, as well as just clicking on each other. Because that was the thing with Second Life, it wasn't VR.
Right.
Like you were still at a mouse and keyboard staring at a monitor. With VR chat, on the other hand, the avatar to avatar interaction models are surprisingly complex these days. We have between colliders and contacts and a whole bunch of other systems that VRChat's built in now, as well as shader systems provided by the community. You can do some pretty amazing things with avatar to avatar interaction. Like one of the things that's really well known that I unfortunately could have probably figured out a Twitch safe demo of, but am just thinking of it right now while we're in the middle of doing this.
Always the way.
Is there's been a history over the past 3 years now. It was March 2021 that the system we know as DPS first came out, the dynamic penetration system. This is on the nerdy side of things. This was a set of shaders that had a camera and a light source, and when you matched them together, the camera would subsume the light source, but the light source was also a mesh. So basically, it would compress the mesh down, and the camera would be like a little tiny hole. So if you get what I'm saying here, when things go into holes and they disappear, that's what would happen with the DPS system. So it gives you the visual relation of the physical intimacy that you're trying to actually enact in a virtual environment. There's been a few different versions of the system now. We started with TPS, then there was DPS, then there was TPS, now there's SPS, which is the latest version that's made by the same person that makes the OSC Ghost Burst stuff that I was talking about. And that works within the current confines of VRChat's feature set to allow you to still do that sort of hide the cannoli, except really, really, really technically in VRChat. And so that gives you the visual representation of what you're looking for. And the great thing is we can get data out of that for part X is collapsed by hole Y enough to basically tell depth, at which point we can relate that back to hardware. Hardware controls. So on a very rough basis, we can change this into vibrations. So it's like the deeper these two things penetrate, the more something vibrates. Ideally, what we would also be able to do, and something we're still kind of working on, is real-time kind of tracking of this. So instead of just having vibration, you should also be able to use a stroker or a fucking machine or something like that that actually has a linear actuation that goes back and forth.
Yeah.
We're still working on getting the real-time aspect of that working, because right now there's a lot of lag and we've got things to figure out, and you really don't want like commands backing up and then all of a sudden things are moving really fast. But even so, I mean, like things are coming along pretty well. It's really cool what we can pull off so far. I mean, and the funny thing is too, it's like you see like Reddit forums and things like that where people are like, gosh, in the future we'll be able to have sex in VR, and it's like
people are already
no like right now multiple people at the moment are on my Discord really
So many
trying,
people.
and their Bluetooth won't connect, I can tell you. Yeah.
We between
So
the two
many
of us,
people are
we know
fucking.
so many VR porn stars.
And actually, in the early episodes of the pod, we had someone on who was a Second Life brothel madam. That's how she got her start in
Yes.
sex work,
Yes,
which was
Evie.
really interesting.
Yeah, so back when I was working in Second Life in like the mid to late 2000s, it was the heyday of Second Life. And it was known both internally to the company and externally that sex was a major part of that marketplace. Like that was one of the cool things about Second Life that you still really only see in the way that Second Life did it in Second Life. Like VR chat doesn't. VR chat sort of has stuff, but you have to like get Unity, put it on your avatar, everything else. Well, where everything in Second Life was done in Second Life, sold in Second Life, etc. And they did let adult content through on that. So one of the really interesting things is that Second Life then became a bit of a sort of a fetish sandbox, an experimentation playground. I wrote up a small article on this way back then called Wouldn't, Couldn't, Shouldn't, and Couldn't. That's what it was. Like, it's the 3 levels of fetish exploration within a virtual environment, where wouldn't is just something you want to like put the training wheels on and try before you go for it in real life. Because the thing is too, it's like you're not going to get physical feedback. You're working with mostly psychological and emotional power exchange in a virtual environment.
Yes.
I mean that can get different when we start talking about computer controlled fetish implementations and stuff like eSTEM and whatnot, but that gets a little weird. So anyways, so wooden is just like, okay, I want to like I'll dress my avatar up in leather or latex or whatever else, and I'll see how that goes. Shouldn't was I want to do that, but there is some. So there's people that may want to be able to do this and may be ready to take that step in real life, but may not be able to for some reason or another. There's a lot of ethical and moral boundaries that this can kind of bump up against. I mean, it could just be you're from somewhere rural or something. You don't
cultural,
actually have,
social, religious.
Yeah. You don't have the ability to get this equipment or use it in a way that you would want to, or that there were people that were subverting agreements about relationships or something like that. So, and then finally you would have couldn't. And this is the part that always interested me, at least in one way. So for couldn't, it kind of diverges in 2 directions. Either things that are not physically goddamn possible, or things that are illegal. So I like to concentrate on the first one more.
So monster cocks, not dismemberment, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, what can you do that like okay, well, I only want to fuck non-Euclidean forms or something like that. It's like, okay, cool. That's all. That's fun. I'm all for that. But then there are people that are also going to be testing the boundaries of avatar representation and things like that in ways that can become questionable. So yeah, virtual worlds and sexual interaction are it's a wealth of exploration and research areas of which I will never have time to visit all of. So that's why I write Buttplug these days. That's why I work on this project, because I know I have so much interest in all of this stuff, but I also really like making money, so I'm not going to get my PhD. I'm going to stay out of academia on it. But what this platform does allow me to do is build a software platform that people can go and interact with and take and do their own things with, and I can just watch what they do with it and kind of learn from that. And that's always been super cool.
I've always been shocked by like where people manage to put your software, whether it's League of Legends, as the modder Furimanjo is in chat right now. Actually, Stardew Valley, my first like interaction with it, I just remember like telling people like, guys, we're playing Stardew Valley, and there'd be sex toys involved. And like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That one caught me by surprise.
Yes.
I was really not quite sure what to expect when someone showed up on my Discord, because I'd been joking about it on social media for years. Like, Stardew Valley has a fantastic community-led modding framework, and the new version of it, 1.6, I think, that comes out like next week.
Snappy.
That actually grows the what's his name? Ape is
Concerned ape.
Concerned Ape. Thank you.
Yes.
Like actually kind of taking that into mind and growing the modding surface of the game. So that's cool.
Mm.
And I mean, anytime you see that, of course, I want to get Buttplug involved. So yeah, someone came along and suddenly it's like, okay, every time you hit a rock, every time you like kill a monster or something like that, and it's super cool. And a lot of people are using it. And I was like, okay, cool. Because there's always, with game mods and Buttplug, there's always this interesting question of how many people are actually going to use it versus how many people are just going to see it as a really funny shit post.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you really have to like aim for the latter and hope for the former. Because it's an easy way to get attention. It's an easy way to
Boy, is it.
just kind of go, look at what I did this game. But then you're gonna find people that are actually interested in using it, and those become like your users that are giving you feedback, that want more features, so on and so forth. And there's been multiple projects where someone's like, I just set this up as a joke, and now people want these extra things. What do I do?
The rock breaking one is the best one, actually. It's just a nice sharp.
Yeah. That like I set that mod up and tried it. I was like, I this feels so weird. I helped make this happen, and yet this feels so weird.
It works really well. I was shocked how well it integrated into the game. Actually, the fishing can kick rocks, but everything else is like pretty well integrated.
Oh, I remember tormenting you during the fishing. That was fun.
Yeah. And
it's become kind of part of the lifeblood of the LootTuber, whether it's like flesh tubers or like VTubers, because Fansly, a lot of sex games just suck.
They do. They're so bad.
And like they're not sustainable for sustained content for 2, 3, 4 hours, however long you're gonna go.
And super male gazy, by the way.
Oh,
yes.
Lord, yes.
Oh, for fuck's sake, yes. But being able to play a game that people recognize and like and sort of are familiar with, while still getting that sort of sexual feedback is not only very interesting, but is part of what is helping us market ourselves.
It's the first thing I recommend to like any like person starting out. Like play some Buttplug games, because like if tip's not rolling in and you're not like getting your toys vibed and people are just kind of sitting there, gets the ball rolling. It's something fun. It's a free show, and it's a gimmick. It's a cool gimmick, but it's a gimmick nonetheless. And like it's a way you can market yourself. Like, yeah, I'm the one who plays Stardew Valley, or the one who plays Trombone Champ.
Yeah,
which is what
is so into the Trombone Champ.
It's my favorite thing. Especially when you mod it with the other songs too, like the Seabat one, for example.
Yeah, and
God, that was hilarious.
Didn't you play the national anthem or something?
Well, that one's built into the game, but still, yes.
Yeah, you were like, this feels so dirty.
Just standing at attention, getting vibed. Ridiculous. But it's the entertainment value is just so. They just amped up, because I could never play like 90% of porn games for my audience. My audience is mostly women, and like, I feel weird playing these games running them. I'm just like, okay, what else can we do? And in some ways,
a lot of porn games are very like non-consenty as well, which is another problem.
That's why most of my Japanese library kind of stays where we're in not
stays out of the limelight.
Stays out of the limelight. Nope, I don't want to open myself up to like that scrutiny. So.
Yeah, Actually, so kind of on that note, I back in 2019, I think it was, I actually published an academic paper on this exact topic, using games as a way to redefine the space of online sexual performance, mostly looking at,
Mm.
once again, cam girls, or cam models, really.
Yeah.
And because the idea there is if you start with like the tried and true, been around for God, near 30 years now, cam model interface, it is video of model here, chat here, the
Mm-hmm.
end.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredibly objectifying interface. Incredibly male gazy once again, because it's like you've just got like the one nude model right here and then just text.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe with some colors and emojis, but mostly just text.
Yep.
And it's a really weird feeling being in that space. Because it definitely feels like a group versus one situation. And so it's like, okay, if we bring games into this, like if a model is playing something, and first off, like then there's a shared experience that is outside the model themselves. It is not completely concentrated just on the model. Now, of course, a lot of people are paying specifically to see that model, but if all they're doing is going, "Oh God, you're hot," or something like that, I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a lot that the model can do to respond to that, and it's hard to actually create interesting content from it, as y'all were saying. Um, but on top of that too, it's just like if you create a game interface, not only that the model can play, just that's interesting, but that games that a fan club or something could play with the model. That gets really interesting. So for that paper, I worked with a model that's been on, I think they were mostly on ChatterBait and stuff. And this was well before gaming was really getting big in modeling and Fansly streams, open
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
OnlyFans streams, things like that. So we got that was back when Rocket League still worked with my software.
Oh.
Well before Epic bought it and put anti-cheat in, so it doesn't work anymore.
I
Sorry.
remember that happening.
Yeah, so but before that, oh, it was super fun.
That's
'Cause
so
it was
lame. I
like,
love Rocket League. What?
yeah, no, I have like 800, 900 hours in it. I was
Oh my
diamond for
god.
a while. I had my moment with it, which was about 5 years long. But yeah, so for specifically to experiment with this, we got this model and her fan club together, and they could play Rocket League with her while she had a toy that was triggered by the haptic feedback of the gamepad she was playing with. So,
Oh,
of course,
yeah.
like the gamepad rumbles whenever there's boost, whenever you get a goal, so on and so forth. So, there became all of these interesting model fan club interaction dynamics out of that. Of like, okay, well, like, is the fan club going to try to figure out how to get the model's vibrator to vibrate more, or is the model going to work with them on that, or is the fan club going to completely forget the model is there with a toy and just play fucking Rocket League, which happened multiple times. Um, which it was really interesting. It was like because people actually had a problem dividing their attention between the sexual context of the model and their vibrator, and the fact that Rocket League was being played. They could just hop in and like start scoring goals and stuff. So, but the important part was at no point was anyone like, "Well, this sucks," or anything. Like everyone had fun. Viewers had fun. Fan club had fun. Model had fun. Like it was far more of a unifying experience than just this whole faceless kind of nameless wall of text and nude model. So I think there's a lot of directions to go with this. It's interesting that right now I feel like we're still in like very early times with it. Because as you both were saying, it's like when you're making this kind of content, it seems like, well, you should do porn games, but porn games are heavy on the porn and light on the game. So there's just not a lot you can do other than, well, that's hot. That's hot. Now I'm hot. There we
Yeah.
go. The end. Okay, fine. Where if you have like
Also,
some sort of interaction.
sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
No, please speak over me at any point. I'm here all the time. We've only got you once. But I listening to you speak, particularly about like Rocket League and the paper that you published, it occurs to me that there's also the sort of dopamine feedback of having something that is familiar, much like a pop song. One of the reasons that pop songs are so catchy is because we get dopamine releases every time the chorus comes up. There is a repeating pattern that we can anticipate and then feel satisfaction when when that expectation or anticipation is realized. And it seems to me that perhaps there is potentially the same thing happening with a game that is familiar, that everybody knows how it works, everybody knows like what the rules are and what the visuals are. So it feels like it would be very inclusive for the audience and reinforcing for them.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And that's actually kind of part of what the paper is about. Because if you look at the model of video and chat that came out of cam modeling in general, that is sort of the like next basely logical step from strip clubs or peep shows. Where there is still the many to one interaction. There is still sort of a wall between the chat and the video or the model or whatever else. So there's a lot of equalities between those situations that, while they can vaguely translate online, they may not do so well. And as people go to those kind of venues less, I mean, and that's the thing is this paper was written before COVID. Now, like I have even more thinking to do about after that. So as people go less to those occasions and more to online occasions, they're going to be expecting something that is more tailored to the online experiences they're used to. And cam modeling ain't that right now. Like we are still on it. We haven't really innovated on these interfaces a ton because you don't need to make money. But it's a combination. It's like a question of, well, do you just want to keep making the same money? Which, be fair, that's a good part of the adult industry. Or do you want to do something new and interesting and try to actually make this a better experience for everyone involved?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's strange because like I don't think a lot of people would have considered like online sex work if not for COVID, believe it or not. I think people were first starting to explore that once we were all kind of inside, and like Twitch streaming, live streaming, and like sort of associated like people search for all kinds of places for like this sort of intimacy, even on like YouTube. They look like for guys like handsome voices and stuff like that, and that parlays into like the sort of interaction that they want with like these people on a more intimate level. And that's when I really saw like VR chat porn take off, because I had never seen it prior to that at all. Like I'd known maybe Project Melody, and that was about it. Like,
yeah, I mean, VR, like, or I mean, really kind of machinima porn, if you want to be mid 2000s about it. And like that was kind of a thing coming out of Second Life, as well as people either hacking game engines or just doing like lookalike renders of other older games. Yeah, now since we have like our like full body tracking and everything else, it's a completely different game. You can really make like porn with any embodiment you want. I mean, there are certain questions about like how much you can get away with, because I mean VR chat's got some things in their TOS about whether or not you're supposed to do that. It's been getting better lately, luckily. But even so, the want is certainly there. I mean, like I don't get to be a fox in real life very much, so it's great to have these spaces and be able to do what we want in them, both sexually and non.
Yeah, it's very much. I think it's. Well, I say short-sighted. I think that it's perhaps unrealistic of the sort of developers of these type of games to expect them not to be used for sex, just because humans are gonna human and humans gonna
Mm-hmm.
fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started like getting my VR model, everyone was like, when you stream with it, don't say you're in VR chat, for the love of God, they will find you and ban you. And it makes me think of something like The Sims 4, which is also about a 10-year-old game, but
I was just thinking that. It's like she tells you she doesn't watch porn, but don't look at her Sims mods.
Exactly. Wicked Whims, what's that? Just leave it. But part of the longevity of The Sims, the reason that it is so long-lived and so popular, is its almost infinite capability to be modded and modified, and also that it can be used for sex and for making your own porn, and
Yeah, roleplay.
for connecting those toys, and enacting scenarios that you wouldn't have the access to in real life.
People love roleplay. It's kind of like it's shocking to me. It shouldn't be shocking to me, like as an online content creator, but people really like roleplay.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that VR chat really needs to like accept that people are gonna fuck, because there is so much I believe anyway, perspectives for like lucrative endeavors, once they accept that. I've been up for 22 hours. My words aren't my brain isn't wordsing very well, so
Well,
I'm
it's
sorry.
like Loafman says in chat. Like people don't really think that this type of stuff is available until someone points it out, or they think it's wildly expensive and out of their budget, and it turns out it really isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic point. Like when I say like what are the major blockers for this kind of technology right now, it's education, a combination of sex education and technical education. And that means not only like first off, you have to know it exists. And like a hell of a lot more people know today than did in 2004 when I started on this stuff. Like because the term we use for this stuff, teledildonics, that's only been around since 1990. That was coined in an essay in Mondo 2000, and it builds on a word from 1976. So these are all like fairly kind of new things here. And then on top of that, to think about computer and technology mediated intimacy, in a perfect world, you would both know about computers and intimacy. In the real world, you usually know very little about either. So it's like, not only do people not have the intimate and sexual education they need to have real life relationships and understand real boundaries, then you apply the ephemerality of computing to it and shit just goes all fucked. Like it's a really complicated thing to think about. And the problem is too, even if people do know about it, most people don't want to fuck the same hardware that they're afraid to install a printer on because they're afraid something will catch on fire. I mean, it's so there's that kind of fear of computing, that mistrust of computing these days. I mean, and it's been interesting too, like moving through the past almost 2 decades now of changes in privacy and thoughts about that. 'Cause I mean, we didn't have Facebook when it started. And so how people think about like where their data is going and whatnot too. So yeah, it's just piles and piles and piles of questions. Like
who would have guessed that Meta would be on your headset and like would force you to make an account and all this stuff, for example, for Oculus.
Yeah, and then your Oculus headset would stop working if Meta goes down, like it happened 2 days ago.
Did that really happen? Oh no.
Yes, there was a huge outage a couple of days ago that took out quite a few. It took out Facebook, WhatsApp, and Meta was the actual Meta reality services were down for a while, and so people just couldn't use their Quest.
That's
great.
Yeah.
Tell you, Mystique is getting a headset tomorrow.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah, that's kind of the part that makes developing software for this interesting though. Like at the lowest levels of just make a vibrator go, it's somewhat difficult. Like knowing how USB and Bluetooth and all that stuff works, and knowing how motors work, and interacting with all that stuff, and how is it going to work on your phone versus your desktop versus the assholes using Linux.
Stumbling over the server cables, yes.
Yes. So I've had a lot of Linux support questions on my Discord lately, and it's made me made me salty for deciding to release a fully open source cross-platform piece of software.
Oh God.
Oh,
Anyways,
no.
but Linux users sometimes deserve sex too. So, anyways,
That needs to be
yeah,
on a
it's
t-shirt.
We get so many great t-shirt slogans out of the show. I swear to God, we can start a side business.
We should.
but yeah, but in the end, that's all technology. They're really, really interesting questions and all that come out of Buttplug and controlling sex toys and stuff like that with computers in general are almost all social, ethical, philosophical. Like that's where the really neat stuff happens. And that's why what I really want to be able to do is provide people with the platform to experiment with the hardware, do what they want with the hardware, and get that part out of the way so that we can discuss the actual really important parts, which are the like more humanities parts of it rather than just the engineering.
Quite so, because as our lives have become more and more connected and more online, there is an explosion of long distance relationships as well.
Yes.
Even outside of sex work, and your software is very much one of the things that helps to make intimacy in those situations possible.
Yeah, there was actually just an article posted earlier this week that was showing the conflicting curves of like all of the ways that people used to meet each other going down, like just anything that was in real life, and
Like
dating
workplace.
apps just like
Yep.
hockey sticking. So yeah, it's weird to kind of be in the middle of that, and that's also the interesting part though is like the work that I do affects sort of the most carnal versions of that. Like everyone usually needs to get through the dating apps and everything else, and then they get to my software. Or they just I mean, the other interesting part is like there's that, or they just eschew all of that, and my software becomes the social contact. Like there is just that sort of, since the social contract for online intimate interaction is reduced quite a bit, it allows people to also just feel freer doing that too. Whether that's a good or bad thing depends on the context of the specific relationship, but it is something.
I think that dovetails very
exactly.
nicely into Furi's question, Furimon Joe in chat, who is the developer of Buttplug of Legends and Overwatch Buttplug. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name of it, but the Overwatch one also. Furi asks, what was the crazy responses to this game added Buttplug post on Reddit and whatnot? So that, like, we find that most people find out about your mods through like Twitter, like viral Twitter posts, Reddit posts. Like, what's the craziest response you've seen so far to this game's added Buttplug?
Okay. So there's a few directions this can go. In terms of the largest response we've ever seen, that would be Ultra Kill. For those of you that are not familiar with Ultra Kill, because I wasn't when this came out. So the YouTuber Shammy posted something about like, when is Ultra Kill getting love and support? Someone pinged me into it. I'm like, oh, what's Ultra Kill? Oh, it looks like an old-timey FPS.
Super
okay,
old-timey.
I'll download this and I'll mod it real quick. It's Unity. It's easy. So I did that in like 2 or 3 hours. I was posting about it on Twitter while I did it, and then the devs messaged me and they're like, "You realize we were actually already doing that, and we almost had an official mod out." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool.
Shit!
I'll back off.
Oh no!
I'll back off. That's awesome. Let me know if you need help." And so I talked to them a little bit. They had their stuff out 2 days later. They released it, and all hell broke loose, which is funny because it's a game where you run through hell. Anyways, like I have learned so much about the Ultra Kill community since then, and it's that was a game where people had been joking about us. Like, Ultra Kill has everything except sex. Because, I mean, there's like a full dating simulator in it. There's like Easter egg after Easter egg and all sorts of
Wow.
stuff. The culture around it's really interesting. But people had been joking constantly that it's like the last thing it needs is sex. And so Buttplug was the sex update. And so that was since that was officially done by the mods, or by the devs, like it, and like the actual publisher talked about it and everything. That was huge. People to this day, I mean, there's people that feel that made Ultra Kill, and there's people that feel that ruined Ultra Kill.
Oh.
Oh, you will never please everyone. Like, oh my God,
absolutely.
any change.
Oh, well, and especially with the way that the thing that I've really learned over the past 3 or 4 years is that game fan communities, like pretty much every game, no matter what, has people that have made it their personality and lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's people that therefore love my integrations, and people that not so much. In terms of like, what the fuck have you done? That would probably be Animal Crossing.
Oh,
Oh
God.
my God, what the fuck have you done?
So the Ultra Kill one that was done by those devs. This one I actually did. This was really difficult. So something I'd been wanting to try was being able to basically hijack Switch controllers. So hijack the connection between the Switch and the Switch controller. And due to certain things about the way Switch controllers work, that would have cost a lot of money and been very expensive, and very difficult. But basically, the way that they keep them wireless is using a special version of Bluetooth that's very difficult to tap. So, anyways, I set it up anyways, and managed to tap both control in and out of the Switch. It was just every command would take about half a second to a second to get to the Switch. It was not a good way to play games.
Right.
But that still allowed me to actually get haptic feedback routed to a sex toy from a Switch game. And this was in 2000, like right after New Horizons came out. So it was like we were all right into lockdown and everything. People needed Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
We did.
So since I'd managed to make it so like if the game made your controller rumble, your sex toy would rumble, we had to figure out, how do you have sex with someone else when they've come to your island in Animal Crossing, which is just absolutely not a thing. So the problem became, how can someone else make your controller vibrate when they're on your island? That is extremely difficult to do.
Yes.
The only way, like the amount of social safety that Nintendo built into Animal Crossing is really impressive, and this was a very weird way to find that out. So what we managed to find is that if someone digs a trap and you walk over and fall in the hole that's the trap, that makes your controller vibrate, which was technically close enough to someone else making your controller vibrate that we called that Animal Crossing Teledildonics.
Wow.
So there I have so on my YouTube channel, Buttplug in with qdot, there's a video that shows the whole setup of that and me inviting someone else over to my island, and sure enough, we actually pulled off Animal Crossing Teledildonics. I would not like ever recommend it as an interface. It was horrible, but it was the proof of concept that mattered. In terms of, and like really, the latest big one that's come out would be in terms of mods for Buttplug mods would be Lethal Company.
Yes.
So that happened back in December, and that has just been constantly people going, why are you doing this? What were you thinking?
Oh, you're
this was
ahead of
not
me,
me.
Atra.
This was someone that was someone from my community did this. I had never played Lethal Company before that because I'm old and have no friends. But
join the club.
And they hooked that up, and there were a lot of people that are just like, "Do you really like Bracken that much?" Because
people are
People
yes.
do. People really do.
Oh yeah, no, we've all seen the E621 tags now. So yeah, I never really know where people are going to put butt plug, and then I never know how other people are going to react to people putting butt plug in that weird place.
Yeah, it's
T-shirt
kind of
idea.
like the rules. It's kind of like we need more rules for the internet because it's like Rule 34. If it exists, there's porn of it. But there needs to be another one that if it exists, someone will want to have sex with it.
It's
Oh,
Rule
absolutely.
34,
Whatever it
subsection
is.
A, the butt plug clause. It's like
Yeah,
Furry says,
it's
I love the lethal vibrations meme. Every time you die, your ass tingles. 15,000 downloads.
yeah, that mod due to being just due to certain statistics and everything else, I think it's been downloaded well over 100,000 times.
Oh, I'm sure.
Amazing.
I can tell you my software does not have 100,000 users. Like there's a piece of software that the mod has to talk to that I control, then I see the download counts on that, and it is not nearly as high as that mod. But there are still quite a few users, certainly.
Yeah, that's the. I'm thinking about it, so I'm gonna download it.
Yeah.
Sort of cue there.
Yeah, because mod setup and installation is an entire process
Oh,
in and
yeah,
of
It's
itself.
getting people to that sort of connection to actually try it out.
You know what else, though?
I've hooked like 4 or
sorry.
5 people up with interface, just like, all right, yeah, this is how you do it. Just click this, click that, click, boom, there you go. Have fun.
But even that can be intimidating because, like, the number of people that like, and I'm, sometimes one of them that just needs someone there to hold your hand,
Yes.
who knows what to do. You can probably do it yourself, but like having that security blanket is very helpful.
It was remarkably easy to set up, but I still know that I would probably need to walk people through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
I had
good
a
news
problem
is-
actually with my Ultra Leap controllers, like using the same port as like interface. Yeah,
Oh God, yeah, that's a big
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
I'm trying to fix that, right? I've been trying to fix that for the better part of 5 years. I mean,
Don't worry.
that's one of those things where it was like in 2017 when I was first putting this out, I was like, oh, I just need to pick a port number, and I chose the wrong one.
1, 2, 3,
And now
4,
it's
5,
now it
baby.
yep, and now it's stuck there forever. But the good news is, if people do have problems, they can always come to our Discord at discord.buttplug.io. Plug, and
Plug.
we have many people who will answer questions there, or we will direct you to the right Discord to ask.
Chat, we'll make sure to link you to that also as well. Yeah, no, I just like close my Ultra Leap tracking, like stop service, close, and I freeze the board up. Like I figured it out. It's down to a pretty good system. We did have
I
a
love
question.
that there.
Go ahead, Misty.
I love that there is such a supportive community around this. People want to help you like get it on, and I think that that's a beautiful thing.
And it's not easy. It's like using this stuff is what we do is not really what this stuff is made for. Like manufacturers of this hardware, they will test it with their app on a phone and that's it. Like what we are doing is well outside of their realms. Like there are certainly companies that are trying to take the kind of stuff we do and do it with their toys. Lovent, certainly. Kiru, Syncbot, others have started doing that. But yeah, the thing is, they all have an interest in just their hardware. We're the idiots that are like, oh, we'll make it all work the same way. And, oh, the pain. Yeah.
So on that note, actually, we have a question from They Call Me Nagi, who had a sort of two-parter here. But the essence of the question is like, how difficult is it really for someone with no experience in modding and programming to make a mod for like Vampire Survivors or Baldur's Gate? Like, how big is the level of entry for like Teledildonics?
Oh dear God! You just in 2 games you named the like absolute swath of difficulty.
Yeah.
Because I've modded both of those. The problem with modding in general, is, and for like, if you haven't programmed or anything else, the issue with game modding is that it's going in and changing a thing that someone else wrote, didn't tell you how they wrote it. Like, you don't have the source code or anything for it normally. So you kind of have to know how computers work and run things before you really get in deep with, okay, like, now I'm going to be able to make this game do this thing. Because you are basically climbing up a vertical cliff instead of walking up a hill. Like, you have to know, okay, this game is in Unity, it's going to be in C#, but it might be IL2 CPP, which means I need to get the symbols this way, so on and so forth. So it can get kind of complicated. There are frameworks out there that make it easier. That's what, when you hear things like BepInEx, Melon Loader, those kind of IPA, those make life easier on modders. So the interesting part is with those two games you mentioned, Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is a web page. Vampire Survivors was written in JavaScript.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy
Yes,
crap.
it ran on, basically, when it was running on Proton, it was like you could just decompile it, and it was just a gigantic ass JavaScript blob, and each little enemy was like little DOM element and stuff. It was actually like, the fact that it ran was a testament to web browsers, and having been a web browser platform engineer, I felt pretty good about it. So on the other hand, Baldur's Gate, Jesus fucking Christ. So
I mean, that's a massive and complex game, right?
Well, so the interesting part is it's a massive and complex game, but the story part of it is made to be modded. Like, Larian has built a game engine that because their narrative people are so important. So it's narrative first, which means there's the top layer is this thing called Osiris, and that's where their writers work. That's like where they can write dialogue and say, okay, these, like, do very, very basic logic interaction stuff. Then under that, there's a scripting layer in a language known as Lua that's really popular in games. And then it gets down to the C++ stuff. So the problem there is, well, what do you want to do with Baldur's Gate? Like, do you, like, and I was working on a mod for it, and I found out that there is no easy way to get dice roll amounts. You can tell whether a dice roll passed or failed, but you can't tell if you need like a 12 or an 18 and then what you got. All you get is pass or fail. And a lot of people are going to be happy with that. And then the question there is, though, it's like, okay, I can get pass and fail. Now, how do I get that information out of the game and into interface and controlling the toy in a way that works easily? And it can get complicated pretty quick. But the good news is, once again, on our Discord, we've got people and modders of all experience levels that are happy to help out. I've been, if I somehow magically get free time, have been considering maybe doing some videos on the basics of like Buttplug and modding games and whatnot, because a lot of people, it seems to have gotten a lot of people really interested in how modding works. And modding these days is well easier than it used to be. It's not like you need to like have like one monitor with Cheat Engine and one monitor with like IDA Pro or Ghidra on it anymore. So you don't need like the big tools with the just or screens full of numbers anymore. You can usually get away with doing pretty easy stuff. But yeah, it does help to have some programming experience though.
There's also all levels of passion. Like, someone who just will make it work because they're like, I will fuck Astarion, or like, whoever.
Oh yeah, no, that's you don't get in the way of the freight trains like that. Here's your starting point. You can go on now. I mean, Fury, who's in the chat, like doing that with we've had so many people ask for like Overwatch. And they did the Overwatch mod, but the thing is like with online games, a few problems with online games and Buttplug. First off, like there's the whole ethical issue of make sure you know who you're playing with, make sure there's proper consent models. Don't, for the love of God, play random lobbies in games.
Yeah, don't do public models. Public models, public lobbies.
But so once you get past all of that, though, and let's just say you are playing with someone that's or a group that knows and is consenting, how do I actually make the goddamn mod work with the game? Because if it's an online game, and especially if it's a server-regulated competitive online game, there's going to be anti-cheat on every single side of that thing. And getting past that is now like illegal. Like you can get in lawsuits over that. And we really don't want people getting in lawsuits over stupid butt plug mods. But the cool thing is, like, people like Fury have figured out how to do screen scrapers. So you can just like have a little program that watches the game and goes, okay, the health bar like went down a little bit, and I can notice that, and I can still make the toy trigger or something else, because Overwatch is huge with the heal sluts. So, and all they care about is health going up and down and things like that, and they can set their own sort of events around that, and that works great for them. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually did give the League one a try last night. I'm terrible at League, but I'm willing to try with that mod.
I was actually wondering how he did it. That is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's not like through like Thunderbolt or whatever. It's like a separate program that you have to like open up and like configure, basically.
I wonder if there's a mod like that for Sea of Thieves. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Not that I'm aware of yet, but I would suspect there probably will be soon.
Yeah, I started out in like my content creation journey as a manager to a Sea of Thieves player, and I know that there are like a bunch of people who would love to have some kind of sex mod.
Oh yeah, I'm totally sure. I've known people that played that too, and yeah.
So it'd be like every time a cannon fires, bzzzt, basically.
Yeah, cannon fire, sword play, because you fight other players. Every time you shoot your gun. I'm sure there's stuff that you could do
for that. Absolutely.
When I used to flirt, the only things that we were able to do was like the sexy dance emote. That was like the extent of Sea of Thieves sexting.
Yeah, that's there's been quite a few games where it's like all you have is emotes, and that's the only way you can communicate, but people will still figure out how to turn that into sexting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Here's a question from Fury, actually. Fury, is there a game you're surprised that doesn't have a mod for it yet? I know you've asked this before on Twitter, like what should we put next on, like what should we mod next? But I guess
Sea of Thieves.
Okay, well, Sea of Thieves. Let's see. Oh, what else?
Can I just say Uno?
Yes, that would be so fun.
But there's no Uno on Xbox. Pull out that meme. No, Uno, that's a great one, and I'm actually surprised there isn't that yet. Obviously, chess has been modded.
I should play chess.
Golf with your friends.
Oh, golf with your friends is a good. How have we not had a miniature golf game? Like,
trust me, I found a way to do it. I found a way to do it.
Yeah, like we did a competitive golf with your friends thing where people could like trigger our toys to make us like miss shots and stuff.
Nice.
But it would be amazing if there was like an integrated.
Yeah, 8 people, 8 anonymous links, just distributed out, and people just buzzing each other and golf with friends.
That's awesome.
That's innovation.
Yeah, that could be doable with the haptics or something like that. That's like, so I to give you an idea, like, so we have all these specific game mods that we've been talking about. I also have a program called the Game Haptics Router. This is a generic mod, and that it takes a game that you're playing and kind of attaches itself to the side of the game while you're playing it, and watches whether any vibration is being sent out, and just sends that directly to sex toys. So that enables tons and tons of games to just instantly work. Whether they're any good with sex toys, completely different question. But you can at least make them work. In terms of games that I'm surprised haven't gotten mods, though, God, I usually have a list in my head, and now I'm completely blanking.
I'm sorry, that's probably my
the
fault.
only thing. The thing is, like, all I've been playing lately is Death Stranding, and that just feels weird.
Every step's little vibrations.
Yeah, but there's a baby attached to you, so there's some really weird
yeah,
happening.
So Baltara looks fun.
Oh no. Oh, let's. Oh no.
No,
No, I'm
no,
not allowed to talk. No, that
no.
I'm playing Death Stranding, so I don't play Balatro, or Baltaro. I have that game is bad for me. That game was my Vampire Survivors with cards. Um,
Oh, fair enough.
I have never heard a stronger endorsement for that game than Vampire Survivors with cards. I love
it's so
Vampire
good.
Survivors.
It's so good. Yeah, no, I love that game.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, I mean that also kind of brings up an interesting topic though of trying to figure out like what games are actually good for this kind of
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah.
That's a big question that I've been trying to get around to doing more content on, because we don't like if you think about it, there's not really very rarely sexual interaction in games as part of games.
Hmm.
Um, there is like you'll get sex cutscenes or you'll get sex as a reward, but you don't actually get like, okay, I actually have to use the controller to have sex.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's been interesting that there hasn't been a lot. I mean, unless like I don't feel like genital jousting and games like that really count.
Genital
Um,
jousting is kind of gross anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
yeah. And so it's interesting. Like, I mean, I'm kind of surprised there's never been like a Fumblecore sex game, like a surgery simulator for sex or something.
Oh my
Um,
god, that would be incredible.
well, I guess I know
Finger
who to
by
make
finger
now.
control.
Yeah.
You have to
Uh,
find the G spot with Surgeon Simulator
I mean,
style control. That would
for
be
me,
amazing.
it hasn't really been like where does it fit naturally, more as like where would be like the most entertaining. So like
Mm.
that's why I'm more prone to like put like to do like sex toy stuff with like Uno, Golf with Friends, Party Animals in a few weeks,
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Fall
No,
Guys.
that's like there's people that it's mostly an interesting question there, but it's
Yeah.
also like I mean, and it's entertaining in a so you kind of have to think about the context too for VTubing and LewTubing and stuff. Like we can trigger your toy whenever the fuck we feel like it, and as long as you
Mhm.
Mm.
make the noise, congratulations, you're successful. There are people that are actually going to try to get off with this stuff, and there becomes all these interesting questions like, okay, well, if I'm going to build a mod for a game, how do I make this sexually interesting? Because if like the win state only happens once every 10 minutes and I trigger to the win state, well, people are going to get really bored for that 9 and so minutes until the toy goes
Yeah,
again.
it's
And
going to
first
keep
That
starts
was my
resetting, and you're never
that
going to get
was
there.
yeah, that was my actual issue with lethal vibrations actually. It just didn't trigger
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult to figure out what the sweet spot is because it's not only is it interaction specific to this, it's body specific to the player. So figuring out, okay, well, how do I make a mod that can do this, but also that the player can customize and that they can find the right hardware for and everything else? It's just like there's a reason that what I do is not being like picked up by AAA games and game studios and everything else. It's like
Mhm.
the amount of work you have to put into this just to make it work is ridiculous. And a lot of people either don't want to put in that work or don't live in situations where it's very easy to, spend 20 minutes setting it up while just trying to masturbate with the game.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah. There's a lot of still a lot of open questions and figuring out how all this stuff should really work.
Mm. I'm actually interested to know your opinion on how much do you think like the development of this kind of technology is constrained by the sort of puritanical pearl clutching about sex and pleasure and masturbation? Like games not
Oh,
wanting to acknowledge any kind of that kind of integration or work on it.
man. So, way back in 2005, I was on the chair committee of the IGDA Sex and Games Special Interest Group. We spoke at GDC a few times and things like that. This was back in the days of hot coffee and the GTA
Oh, I
issues
remember
and
Hot
stuff.
GTA,
Coffee.
yeah.
Yeah. And we are 20 years later almost, and we're still asking the same goddamn questions.
Those janky cutscenes were so controversial back in the day.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like it's hard to integrate this in a medium. Because it's like, okay, well, you can do it as a cutscene, but it needs to be done in a way that's useful and sometimes tasteful, which I mean, it kind of can be. I would say that there were some places that games like Baldur's Gate have pulled that off, and there were other scenes in Baldur's Gate where they absolutely did not.
Yeah.
The mind flare.
Oh yeah.
Parting the tentacles.
I totally fucked the mind player too. Yeah, no, that game is a boon to monster fuckers.
I joke. It was actually a pretty good scene on all this.
It was like what they tried to do with it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the same as, say, your like Leisure Suit Larry style, like let's go boink or whatever else,
like frat boy
type
whatever
game interaction.
Nonsense,
Yeah. So yeah, I would agree that there is a issue with the puritanical sort of view on that, and the games are for kids and everything else. Like there is still, like, these days the sex and games sig no longer exists, but there is the romance and sexuality special interest group that's still part of the IGDA. They have a roundtable at GDC this year. GDC's in 2 weeks. I'll be there. So there are people still looking at this in the industry. Most of the people on the romance and sexuality sig, though, are working on romance games. Like that's the thing, though, is like back in 2004 we didn't have the mobile games market, we didn't have the visual novel market.
Yes.
And so where the paradigms, the interaction paradigms in which sex fits and which sex storytelling fits have just seen leaps and bounds since then. But in games in general, like it's still really hard to talk about. And it's really kind of hard to figure out. And the problem is too, it's like it just takes one bad actor, one studio with a shitload of money and a really bad idea to release their AAA game with some crappy sex in it, and the reset button has been hit. So in terms of trying to get a industry-wide sort of view of how we should do this and how it should go, we're still a long way off, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult.
That's fascinating. Thank you.
Baldur's Gate really sort of broke through, I think, that mold. Like they put the sex in a triple. I don't know if we consider a AAA game or not. I guess maybe they are. But it put the sex in there, and like it was just universally just liked and accepted, and like people didn't really have that big of an issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, they got it in context was the thing.
True.
And it flowed well. It wasn't like, well,
part of the game, but not the point of the game.
If you played like right when it came out, everyone kind of was really horny before they rebalanced.
That's true. Yes, it was all you could read about. Like Baldur's Gate is horny. That's good. And it's like, okay.
But even so, it was like, even though everyone was hitting on you really hard, it was still within context and stuff, and it didn't feel quite as, once again, as male gazy, as kind of non-consenty, or as weird as it has in other games. Certainly,
of course. It's something that everyone, like many people of a wide spectrum of like sexual identity could enjoy, whether it was Astarians, like, or Carl. Like there was something in there for everybody, including Mind Flayer fans. You know,
and don't forget the bear.
And the bear. And the bear. Could never forget the bear.
Yeah, I loved that there were they encompassed the whole spectrum of gender identity and the relationship types that, you know, humanity has. And it made sex part of the game, but not the point of the game.
I think about the scene where Astarion tells you get on your knees and the player has the option to kick him in the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The entire spectrum, including bratting really hard.
To the balls.
To the balls. Doesn't he like leave your party and never come back when that happens?
I don't know.
Apparently.
Oh.
I've never kicked Astarion in the balls.
Well, that's a hit point for my next Dark Urge run then.
The Dark Urges win.
But yeah, like, well, the great thing about Baldur's Gate 2 is Larian led with it. Now
Yes.
they like because like we saw the bear fucking scene before the game even
Way
came out,
before
and
it. Kotaku picked up
one
on it. Yeah.
yeah, like, and one can say that it's like, well, they did it for shock value and everything else, which yes, but I mean that's a big part of my shtick too. But they still made it work. It wasn't just for shock value. It's like, okay, people start playing the game and it's not like, well, and then there's this scene. It's like, oh wow, they got the story to lead that way, and you have to choose that. At which point, well, you've had your you made your consent to the story. Cool. So yeah.
Yeah, having that control and having consent built into the very dynamics of it was very adeptly done, I thought.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was really, really happy with that.
Mm.
Another
Something else
t-shirt
that
idea. Buttplug IOs, the shock value. Go ahead, Misty.
Well, it certainly was when you played that trailer last episode. Oh my god.
The trailer.
I hadn't seen that either, so it played I saw it for the first time live and I was like, holy shit.
For those of you who haven't seen it, we had a video clip of qdot using a fleshlight, a special kind of fleshlight actually, to play Seabat on Trombone Champ.
Yeah, that was the interactive fleshlight that came out sometime in like, I think mid 2000s. So the interactive fleshlight, you take a regular old fleshlight, and it was a cap that had like a little air tube coming out of it that went to a pressure sensor. So it was checking the pressure as you moved the flashlight back and forth on something.
I wondered what
hard
that
and rigid.
hose was.
Yes, that was the air pressure checker. It was horrible. It was like the thing did not work at all. It was made to like be played. Like it came with some games that were like the worst Flash games I've ever seen. Because this was around the time of that.
Right.
And I just still happen to have it in my box archive of sex toys that I hate and I'm really sick of moving. And so yeah, I pulled that out and played trombone. Like, because it was just like, well, it kind of works with air, and trombones work with air. Sure, I'll do this. And oh god, that was one of the dumber videos I've ever made.
It was amazing. I just started growling and put in my Discord like, he did it too. He did it too. Because I had recently done the Trombone Champ mod with Seabat and just like, yeah.
That video was probably, God, how many times was that shared? Your first Trombone Champ video?
Many, many times. It's another one with the shock value. It's like, you can do that in Trombone Champ. Like, you absolutely can. Here's how you do it.
Yeah, no, that's why, like, when anyone's like, oh, hey, I used Buttplug IO for this, and here's the VOD and everything else, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm hitting retweet on that shit. Like, I'm more than happy
that,
to.
by the way.
Well, I make this for y'all. It's like I'm certainly not really using the software at this point. I'm just mad at it most of the time. So I mean, the way that I used to joke that writing Buttplug made me asexual, and the longer the development goes on, the more that becomes true. Because if you want to really not like sex, make yourself the geek squad of sex.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They say the same thing about
relentlessly.
They say something about like hentai artists, like, 20 hours later, they're sick of looking at the damn thing.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I have made it so people think putting Bluetooth in their sex is a good idea, which it never is. And then I have to tell them why it doesn't work when they try it, and they're very horny and very angry.
Another t-shirt idea, by the way, Geek Squad of Sex.
Oh, I'm stealing that.
I had a question here, actually. Go ahead, Mystique. Make your point.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, have you found that there has been an uptick in, like, the uptake of your software, given, like, the explosion in sort of people making content for themselves and, getting into sex work with the destigmatization of sex work and the accessibility, being able to have an avatar and not have your face on stream and being able to do it from your home. Have you found that there's been an uptick in the uptake of your technology?
We're getting there. It's slow right now because people are still just realizing what VTubing means. And what that can do for them, and getting used to this idea of, yes, you may be aiming a webcam at yourself, but no, you're not broadcasting your actual image. Where I exist on that spectrum is a little bit farther out from that, where it's like, okay, once they realize that, and I mean, I like watching Project Melody.
Yes, Project
Yep.
Melody.
Yeah, Melody, like, and the the V Shoujo groups and things like that take off. Like, it's getting really, really big. So I definitely have seen some uptick from that. But there's a lot of people too where the question becomes, do you really need my software stuff? It's like, I mean, a lot of people that are VTubing are also voice acting too. And it's like, well, you do want to concentrate on the voice. And my software can add some complexities that may make your stream not work and things like that. So I can get it why people don't. But yeah, there are definitely people that are coming in like, okay, I want to use this for VTubing. I want to use this for some sort of lewd content. How do I do that? And I'm always happy to help. It's why I make the software. It's why I'm happy to repost content and show people what others are doing with it, because I don't really try to build a community around Buttplug, as it were, because the community around Buttplug is going to be a whole bunch of really nerdy people like me that are really interested in like Bluetooth and radio specs and like haptic actuators and things like that. Like the Buttplug, the library itself is mostly just about the hardware, but the communities are going to be the people that are using it. And one of the like major rules I have about Buttplug is that we try as much as possible, unless we are asked, and even then it's kind of iffy, never go into a community that I don't have like personal interest in. So it's like, I'm not just gonna like show up to some fetish community that I've never had any interest in before. It's like, they come to me and they need to have some representative that works as a sort of an intermediary between them and their fetish community, me and their fetish community, because there's going to be a lot to think about in terms of fetishes and interests and things like that I cannot do. That I just will not have the background for, will not have the interest in. So it's like, and I want to make sure that if I need to go off and do something else with some random piece of hardware they're not interested in, they're sustained in a way that they can go off and just work with my software and continue to do it within their own needs. So that's kind of the antithesis of working in the adult industry, where you're really just actually supposed to be in everything and extracting money from all of it.
Oh,
but
God,
yeah. So and that's been one of the interesting things about working with VTubers, is like finding out like all the different communities of VTubing or lewd tubing or other like avatar work and whatnot. And I usually work with content creators instead of really communities there, and they're the ones that take it to their community.
Yeah.
I suppose you need. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mystique.
No, I suppose it's very helpful to have an intermediary to distill everything between the two parties.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's when there's not an intermediary, like talking directly to a community, when you're talking to them about the thing they're horny about, they usually get horny. And that tends to cloud communication quite a bit, especially when you're trying to be incredibly technical. So, so having that like that sort of border to work with is kind of nice.
Like, oh yeah, math me, baby.
Absolutely.
I do find not for everyone.
I do find like when you get to a certain level in VTubing, like you can kind of just sit there for like 2-3 hours and just constantly get tipped, and like, because like I have like a couple of friends who like will try to play a game and then just end up not playing the game. because like of the constant distractions from chat. Where I think Buttplug really shines though is the smaller to medium market, where you kind of need to fill that space. Like it was like mentioned earlier with like campsites and sort of like sitting there, like what are you doing like between the tips, between the attention, like when you have 3 viewers versus like 300 viewers.
Yeah, and yeah, this gives you it gives a drive. It gives momentum, and it means you don't have to hope chat's going to run it. And also, if no one shows up, well, maybe it's just a good game to have your toy controlled, and you don't even need chat at that point.
Exactly. That is the.
It's a nice.
That's why
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry.
probably one of the best like tools I think starting out in YouTubing, like Buttplug. Like genuinely, it's the first thing I tell people when they ask me for advice. Like go get this mod, find a game you like, and play it because people will show up and like your like the little noises you make, basically.
Yeah, and then also like, and then you just slice up the noises, and you put those on TikTok, and there you go. You've got your content pipeline.
Exactly.
It's also a great crutch for people with a kind of social anxiety. Growing up in a radio family, something that I had to get over, and something that I saw people having to get over, was the one-sided communication, where you are sitting and speaking out and not necessarily getting a lot of feedback. And if you have only a couple of people in chat, then they might not talk, they might just be sitting there watching you. And to have a source of entertainment that you can enjoy together, I think, is a great way to break the ice with your community and with your chat, and give you something to focus on that isn't like, I'm sitting here in silence, oh god, there's dead air, there's dead air, there's dead air, what do I do?
I could never stream like that. I would absolutely lose my fucking mind.
I just start rambling about random nonsense.
I just don't stream. That's why I just go on. I'm happy to go on others' streams, but yeah, no, I've thought about like trying to set up a like let's code for Buttplug stream, and then I realize what I'm like when I'm coding, and it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
that's my private time. I don't really want to share that with the public.
I mean, you have a great presence. Like you break things
thank
down in a way that's like very easy to understand. Like I'm following most of the conversation, even when you get a little technical.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, when talking about this subject, if you get over, like, it's already weird in the first place that it's sex, and then if I get overly technical and perverted, oh, that's a special kind of awkward. So,
That's another T-shirt idea, by the way.
It's a
Overly
it's
technical
a-
and perverted. Buttplug.io.
It's yeah, I guess this is kind of the coping mechanism I've come up with over the past many years of figuring out how to do this. Like, okay, like here's where you can stop the technical and start the sexual, and vice versa.
Speaking of the technical, I have a question for you here for my list. Today's toys can vibrate, thrust, rotate, actuate, and alternate sensations. Are you finding developing for these toys is becoming more complex? Do you enjoy this challenge?
Oh God. Okay. So I've already come up with like 16 different reasons the Buttplug exists as we've been talking so far. So let me add a 17th. Haptics. So haptics is what Buttplug is. And you're used to hearing about this in terms of like, okay, I'm playing a video game and my controller vibrated during some large event where something would vibrate. Like, or,
Haptics,
well, really,
vibration.
it's like
Yeah.
whenever anything happens, like, oh, I'm on fire and my controller's vibrating. I got hit by a car. My controller's vibrating. Someone gave me a hug. My controller's vibrating. Yeah. It's so, and that's all we have really. That was and the companies still pay many millions of dollars to Immersion Corp for the patents on that every year.
Oh, I didn't know it was patented.
so-
That's interesting.
Oh, it is patented to hell and back. And Immersion's gone after Sony. Or wait, no, I think they went after Sony, and Microsoft helped out. Like Immersion will, if you do not pay for patent rights, Immersion will come in and they will fuck you up. So They pretty much exist completely as a patent house these days. But the thing is, vibration is vibrotactile for games is what we know. And that's what people will develop for. Anything else is a lot of work. And that's usually why you haven't seen many games like do anything that's anything more than vibration, is because you're going to be looking at just a ton of extra development time and hardware work and things like that, and it's not going to pay off. Like, you also have to hope that all the people have the hardware you're supporting, which many people don't.
Like the Solus.
Yeah. So there comes this question, and then in general too, computers are really good at relaying sound and graphics. We've gotten very, very good at those two things.
Yep.
Touch is a distant third, and then there's smell tech, which is dog.
No, I saw you posted on that.
Smell tech.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Porn games and smell tech. Just saying.
Just buy yourself a goddamn bottle of Game Girl bathwater. You don't need some sort of mister or something with
candle.
it. Like, yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, just take technology out of that equation. And then there's taste, which is incredibly difficult to do. But anyways, so touch and computing. When we think about touch, like, if you think about all of the aspects of touch that you have with your hands, your paws, or whatever else, like, so you've got your friction and your pressure and your temperature, and then there's like multiple axes of friction and stuff. Like, you've got so many sensory receptors in fingertips and whatever else that we have to try to figure out how to activate and stimulate from computers. And then we also have to come up with a language for that. So how do we actually describe on a computer, okay, you're feeling sand versus ice versus penises versus vaginas versus whatever else? The languages for these things, we don't have good spoken language for this. We suck at talking about touch. We're still crap at, like, we barely know how to talk about pain. If you talk about like actual pain receptors and pain treatment and whatnot, 98% of it is anecdotal, of asking the patient how they feel and then trying to
the face
figure
chart.
that out. Yeah.
Yes.
The face chart. So touch is a very difficult thing to, it's a very deep communication medium, but it's a very difficult thing to communicate about. So Buttplug is made to take a teeny tiny piece out of that gigantic problem of how do we communicate about touch, and try to work on that a very small bit. Because the problem is, it's like, if I like, well, Buttplug replaces sex, that's not a claim I'm ever going to make. Like,
No.
that's way too difficult, because it's like, well, how, like, that would be replacing the touch and the smell and the sound and all of those other things. And if we
Not
even
to
just
mention the
take
emotional intimacy.
The intimacy.
and the emotional intimacy, yes, like, you can't really just like inject those brain chemicals and experiences in. So Buttplug, like, is just the teeniest, tiniest slice of that problem. And even then, it's really, really difficult, because we also have to present this in a way where people are going to use it. So it's like, it has to be easy to use, which means right now, Buttplug basically has 3 verbs. You can vibrate, you can rotate, and you can stroke. That's about it. That's really all we do. Like, we support over 400 different devices, but really for those 3 movements. So the question becomes, what happens when a toy comes out that does something more than those 3 movements? And the answer is, I'm screwed, and not in the way that the toy meant. This is a constant moving target, because you have to figure out, like, okay, well, how am I going to communicate this new thing? How does it tie into all these other things? How do I keep supporting all the people that wrote software years ago that might want to use this new thing but don't want to rewrite their software, so on and so forth. And so, this is like one of the most difficult and unsolvable challenges of this project. And it's also what makes it interesting, though. It's like it's a fun problem to resolve as new hardware comes out. Like, for instance, the sort of the gold standard of penis manipulators is the OSR2, which is okay, I'll let you actually laugh at that. I was going to try to just judge through that, but
I'm sorry.
it's,
I'm a child. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. So the OSR2 and its next iteration, the SR6, it still holds a fleshlight, but it can move it on multiple axes. So it's like with the stroke, you're used to it moving up and down. The OSR2, it can actually tilt the thing as well as moving it up and down, and can rotate it on a center axis. It has lube injection. It has heating. And the thing is, it's completely DIY. You 3D print it.
I didn't know it was 3D printed. That's very interesting.
I have a video on my YouTube where I show the basics of it, and I'm about to rebuild my 3D printer, and I may do a video on building one, because it's just a really neat piece of engineering. But at the same time, it's also incredibly complex to control, because you then need to, if you want to be able to control all that stuff and give people the most real sensation, then you need to have a system that can handle figuring out, okay, well, the fleshlight's here, and the thing that's controlling the fleshlight is tilted this way, and it's moving this way, and it needs to sync with the movement that's happening on screen in some way that's within 30 to 50 milliseconds. There's so much engineering behind it, and how to describe that and all. It's the problem that keeps on giving. With the OSR2 specifically, like, there's a program that it uses called Vertimate, called Vertimate. It's a Patreon.
Oh, I know Vertimate.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's what we call a poke the doll simulator, but it's like like SolidWorks or CAD, or like professional package of it, where you can set up like it's VR, and you can set up all sort of animations and whatnot. And that's the one where people have gone in and made like one-to-one movement and lubrication changes and things like that in the toy with whatever is happening with the immersive situation. It's really neat. It's the amount of work people have put into it is super cool, but we can't do that for every game. So that's why we mostly concentrate on Vibrotactile, and that's like the one that people are going to have the most of. And then we move on as we can, and we figure out as we can. And the great thing is too, with Buttplug, if you have a toy that just does something really, really weird, and we absolutely cannot figure out, or we can't figure out what to do with it, or there's only like, you're making it and there's only 3 of them. We have a way that if you want to put the work in, you can develop your own device driver that works with our system, and kind of plug it in and distribute that yourself. And it never has to go through us. So, because Buttplug is really 2 developers. There's me, and then there's Black Sphere follower who runs iostindex.com, which I should plug real quick. If you are curious about all the hardware that is out there, iostindex.com, Internet of Sex Toys Index.com. That lists every single computer-controlled sex toy through history that we know about. I think there's like 700 different pieces of hardware on there at this point, because it's become the devs' Pokemon, basically. Like they have more toys than I do. Like I've just basically stopped buying toys. They handle all of our device reverse engineering and stuff now, and I get to go do the podcasts and everything else. So it's a hard problem in terms of trying to make sure all these toys work in some way and work whatever the right way is and whatnot. But it keeps things interesting, and it's going to be moving and changing until I get sick of the project and just stop working on it, which we hit year 7 next month, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon.
That's amazing.
Apologies
for speaking over you just now. I get excited when you say things, and I'm like Captain America. I know that one. I got that reference.
This site is amazing.
He said words that I know.
So, chat, this site literally has like all the toys you can think of, and it even has a little column here for the buttplug.io support. So Buttplug
Yeah,
actually supports
yeah.
it.
There's so they show Buttplug support. There's also an app that we weren't really like. It's a dev we know. And we kind of work together. Xtoys.app. So
Mhm.
Buttplug is great for game mods and stuff. If you ever have a sex toy that you want to control remotely with someone else, and you want like there's little fun stuff that you can do for controls and stuff with it. Xtoys.app. It's purely on the web. Um, you just go to xtoys dot app, like that's the domain, and
Mhm.
you can do remote control via just purely on web browser. You don't even need interface or anything. There's games on it. There's all sorts of stuff. It's free. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, look at
That's
that.
awesome.
Interesting.
When I was back in university, I worked for the British Science Museum's video game exhibit, where they had like everything from one of the original like Pong arcade
Oh
machines
yeah,
through to
yeah.
like the Wii. That was the big thing, was the Wii at the time, which rather dates me a little bit. But I feel like there really should be something like that for sex toys, given how many people use
Yeah,
them and their
yeah.
fascinating history.
We've joked about starting a museum.
We really should, though.
But oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If I
Who
finally get
knows?
sick enough of this stuff, and
There's a museum of
uh,
sex right here in New York City, actually. Like you could,
yes,
it's
there is. There
completely
is. I
viable.
have
Yeah,
never been there, weirdly enough, but
it's
yeah,
okay.
it's
It's so.
Yeah, just have a traveling exhibit and lug all your toys all over the world too. Like all the different penis museums and stuff.
well, if you'll give me just a sec here, I'm going to assert dominance and
Oh no,
keep
he's
Oh
asserting
my.
dominance.
okay. Sorry, my tracker calibration was going off. Okay. That's the one problem with this and versus VTubing is every once in a while my hips decide to just wander off and suddenly I'm sitting in a very weird way. But anyways, all fixed.
I'm transfixed by this, like the ability to like just reach towards a screen and stuff like that. Like, don't let VTubers
Yeah.
find out about this. They're gonna go absolutely wild with this sort of thing.
Yeah. Atra is a big fan of talking with his hands, so I think that this is really selling him on the VR chat thing.
Again, it's my New York heritage. I just love to talk my hands.
I am honestly shocked that there's not better VTubing. Well, I really think the Apple Vision Pro is going to be the VTubing platform once we can finally figure out how to get the data out of it. But
How is that, by the way? Like I noticed you had one.
don't buy it.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Don't spend the money.
Don't drive with it on.
Yeah,
No,
don't get
no,
my
God, definitely don't
Cybertruck
drive
with
with
it on.
Yeah, no, I have a bunch of like that's the thing is I do VR development and research and AR development and research. I have a business budget. I can buy those things and then research with them. Don't spend your hard-earned money on that thing. Go buy yourself a nice VR headset and you'll be just fine. The Apple Vision Pro needs another 2 rounds of hardware revisions and any marketplace at all before it's interesting. Now, the interesting part is it does connect to sex toys through interface as well as like Lovence's app works on it. Yeah, Lovence actually apparently put out gesture control so you can do this and make your toy go. And it's just like,
Wow.
why? I mean, I
So
get it.
weird people masturbating on the subway is just like had a whole new upgrade.
I guess, yeah. But otherwise, no. It's nice. You can read text on it. Like I'm using an index right now, and I can't really like read chat or anything at the
Right.
moment, even though I have Discord up. But
Mm.
yeah, no, it's still got a long way to go, though. VR, I still use my VR headsets exponentially more than I do my AVP.
So this
But
is
it
less
was
of a fad,
yeah.
like say Google Glass, for example, like because that went nowhere. Do you think this
Yeah.
actually has something viable in the future?
I think there's some really interesting like the pass-through camera needs work. So like when you're just looking at your environment around you, like you're looking at your room or something through it, there's still a little bit of
The graininess, yeah.
lag and hazing on it. It's not just completely clear like they made it look in the commercials. And there's like barely any apps for it right now. There's some interesting questions about where it's going to go with adult. Like there's just been tons and tons and tons of Reddit threads predicting, as always, the Ready Player One of porn with AVP. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because the thing is, it's like, okay, well, it's AR, so I can project waifu onto my nasty couch. Oh, cool,
Ooh.
awesome. Like
My
what?
VTuber waifu on my couch. I mean, hear me
Yeah,
out though. Probably,
I
probably, probably.
Oh
uh,
God, that just makes me think of all the VTuber harems out there.
do I need to be
Just have
worried
all
about
your
the
top
couch I'm on right now?
concubines on your couch.
No, this one's Scotch guarded. We
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. Uh,
This is a classy establishment.
okay, just making sure. Um, Yeah, there's certainly some interesting things that I think will be able to be done with adult and AR, VR and all, but right now it's much easier to have like a fully immersive space that
Mm.
actual VR provides, where AR they really want you to interact with the physical environment around you, and we've got a lot of learning to do about that first. So yeah.
I'm still scrolling this
This
website, this IOST website. There's a kissing simulator here.
Oh,
Oh
was that the
yeah.
thing from The Big Bang Theory?
I have no idea. I didn't know this is a real thing.
Yeah, it is. It's so there's a this came out of China a couple years ago. You can mount your phone in it so that like when you're on FaceTime or Zoom or something with someone, and then you can put it right up here and start making out with like this lippy thing down here.
Yeah, it's got lips and a
It's
tongue.
yeah,
It's like
and, and it vibrates, I think, whenever you kiss it, and it's just like I don't know what people have been kissing that build these things, but like kissing interfaces are almost pretty reliably the weirdest and scariest things I've ever seen. Like trying to not to say sex isn't isn't intimate, but kissing is really, really, really intimate.
Oh
So
yeah.
trying to replicate that, you better get it right, or you're gonna get it incredibly goddamn wrong. And most people get it incredibly goddamn wrong. Like it's just like, oh, that's I don't want to put that anywhere near my face and think those thoughts. No, I mean it's even with VR porn. If so, like VR porn is usually POV, of course. And something that in the early days, I don't really watch a lot of VR porn. Funny enough, but when I was like testing for video sync and stuff, I would just be watching videos, and like they would always start with like the model trying to kiss you or something. And the thing is, if something gets close enough to your face in
Goes through
VR,
your
your
face.
pull
eyes
back.
are going to cross. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like they would just get up this close, and all you would hear is like smacking sounds and a face that you couldn't quite recognize. And it's like, oh yeah, because I usually fucking close my eyes while I'm kissing because I'm not a
psycho.
serial killer.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's kind of a hard thing to simulate and do in that way. So yeah, that's while we aren't very good at connected sex, we're really bad at connected kissing.
Buttplug
God,
also integration, by the way, is compatible with Buttplug, that kissing thing.
Yeah, that
Really?
would be due to the IOST index dev. They really buy anything that they can find that they can hook up, they buy and they make it work with the software, and I'm just like, oh God, why? I mean, thank you, because the more hardware we get, like the better. But also, oh no, someone's really gonna use that.
That's hysterical. I'm just imagining trying to get intimate with someone and they've got their phone camera like right up against their forehead or like in one of their ears, and you're like, "Yeah, baby, mwah, mwah."
I mean,
No.
if you've been
Oh,
away
boy.
from someone long enough, desperate times, desperate measures, etc. But
Yeah.
you got to be real desperate for that kind of interface.
That's hilarious.
And by the way, chat, if you have any questions for qdot, please feel free to put them in chat for us. We will definitely try to work them into the conversation, and they're very much appreciated. So get them in there.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. It's very different from our usual content, and like we appreciate you coming on so much.
The other ones
no problem.
are fascinating too. Just as. But
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad
the
you've
breadth
enjoyed
of
it.
like your historical knowledge and like your technical knowledge is just unmatched so far, and that's we're really enjoying this.
Yeah, I am prepared for whenever Jeopardy finally has adult categories.
That's incredible. I think chat has been quite quiet because this is something that's quite outside our areas of expertise and knowledge. And I think even, the terms of teledildonics or cyberdildonics, they conjure up like images of like vaporwave aesthetics and,
Kind of, yeah.
like Tron robots and stuff. I think it's like, it's quite intimidating for someone coming in fresh who doesn't know about this kind of thing to try and get into it.
I've got a question though. This is from our list, actually, a prepared list. So for those who don't know, chat, qdot here has been blogging and covering the sex toy world for quite a long time, 2 decades actually. So our question is: you spent a few decades covering the teledildonics world. What's next? Are there any trends or fads that you keep seeing repeated? I would probably say the smell-o-vision one, right?
Oh god, that's just a technology that is buried in trauma for me now. I've been trying smell tech at multiple like SIG graphs and GDCs, and every time I just get sick. That's it. That's every time. So yeah, smell is a tough one. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people doing amazing research and work with smell tech. Jas Flowers out of Chicago at Pedro Lopez's lab. Amazing work if you're interested in research on that. But yeah, in terms of where teledildonics is going, it's kind of hard to say because it's mostly just like we're still at trying to get people to figure out it exists. Like we talked about earlier, where it's just like, okay, so they just need to know it's here. I would say honestly, VR chat and the VR and Vertimate and some of these VR interfaces are the absolute. It's hard to use both the cutting and bleeding edge terms in this situation, but they're at the forefront. There we go. Yeah, I like what we're doing around immersion in VR and how we can make interactive experiences while you're immersed, as well as with this hardware is kind of huge right now. But the thing is, like, for all of the stuff that is happening in VR chat or Chill Out or Resonite or Vertimate or whatever else, that's still a teeny tiny portion of the VR market, which is a teeny tiny portion of the gaming market, which is a sizable portion, but still not all of the computing market, which is still like, so it's like there's still like the scaling curve has not hit yet. And what'll make it do that? I don't know. Because the thing is too, it's like there's not like, as we talk about here, where there's like VTubing and gaming, and we're all familiar with this stuff. That's not what companies like WeVibe are doing. WeVibe's just trying to get couples to work to use this stuff on long distance and whatnot. So that's a completely different usage model. So it could be that this blows up somewhere well outside of the nerdery that we're all involved in. But yeah, so you kind of have to look at it from both depth and breadth perspectives, where it's for breadth, the biggest development in the past in my career so far has just been smartphones. Just smartphones allowing people to have something they feel like is a more private interface for computational and technological interaction. They don't have to do it on a laptop or a desktop or something anymore. They have this little rectangle they can press. And they can store their personal data on that, and they feel better with it. In terms of depth, though, figuring like we still don't really. I mean, like there's certainly been actuator upgrades over the past 20 years, like the introduction of air suction mechanisms, which people would more know as like the womanizer or like the little like the clitoral stimulators.
Tenera.
Yeah. So that was a big change. Like we're getting better motors in now. Like there's next month, actually, the Handy, which is a Norwegian company that usually make a stroker. They're putting out a vibrator that uses this thing that's called an LRA, a linear resonance actuator. So if you've played with your VR controllers or Joy-Con or PS5 DualSense,
Hmm.
like you've noticed that haptics are far more like they're like hi-fi haptics or whatever else, or
Hmm.
that's due to them using a different type of motor. You can kind of think of it like instead of it being like a motor with little spinny weight on the end of it, now motors
Yes.
are more like speakers. It's just that instead of moving
Oh.
air, they can move mechanically, but they can still move at the speed of and they can still move at the speed of an audio buffer, which basically means you can play waves through them, which is like, okay, I'm on a horse, it's galloping, and okay, it actually feels like it because they're playing the galloping sound through the motor.
Hmm.
Um, these have not really been used in sex toys yet. Because they're usually higher frequency than we want. Like, I mean, because when you think about sex toys in general, gold standard, Hitachi wand.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
Hitachi wand requires a motor with an incredibly large weight at the end because you really want that thump. Like that really matters to the nerve endings in genitals. LRAs are much higher frequency than that. So instead of getting that subwoofer, you're getting the tweeter, like higher buzz. We aren't really sure how that's going to work with genitalia yet. So that's going to be really interesting. Like seeing that's going to be the first toy on the major market to come out with that sort of motor style in it, and we'll see how it goes. It could be pretty cool. It could fail completely. Who knows?
So is that
Um,
something that could like stimulate, like if you're talking about a penis, for example, like stimulate the bottom of the penis and like going
that
like
would simulate. Yeah, I
yeah.
like that would probably be under the glands or something like that. Because
Hmm.
the like you got to think about where the nerve bundles are in the penis and everything else. Like you're not gonna doing that on the shaft is not gonna do much.
Hmm.
That's why things like extenders and stuff on Hitachis work well for penises. But for vibration in penises, it's really penis owner to penis owner in terms of what works. And uh I'm interested to see how that works out. Like the toy is made for like clitoral stimulation, but the people are gonna hook it up everywhere. And that's just the way this works. Just don't put it in your butt because it doesn't have a flared base. But
T-shirt idea.
Yes. I,
Don't
I
put it
have
in your
spawned a
butt.
whole wardrobe tonight, apparently.
No flare face. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that'll. So I think yeah, the future is going to be new actuator types, like figuring out like how can we what new ways can we stimulate genitalia? Like I mean, there's also another toy called the Nimble Stroker. So are you familiar with the Venus 2000?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, for those that aren't, the Venus 2000, it's this suction thing. It's kind of like sticking your penis in a vacuum, except safe. And it's been said that it's supposed to simulate blowjobs really well and stuff. It was built in the 80s. It's used the same technology the whole time. It's still $1,200. It's kind of amazing.
That's
The Nimble
terrifying.
It's
Stroker
got like a whole
is
suitcase attached to it that you have to
Oh,
like.
absolutely. It is a gigantic black box and it makes noises and like there's a whole aesthetic around it even. It's very popular in dungeons because it fits well within the aesthetic of dungeons. Like you'll see it, yeah, you'll
Oh.
see it a lot in milking porn and stuff too. It's basically become kind of the go-to aesthetic for that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
The Nibble Stroker is kind of an updated version of that that uses some really interesting, much faster mechanisms to regulate the air pressure and airflow. So you can get some really interesting patterns and feelings out of that no other toy can replicate right now. It will liquefy your junk if you let it. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, it's also $900, but it's people like continually improving, continually trying new things. So I'm certainly hopeful that we're going to see new stuff. Um, what it's going to look like in terms of how we interact with it, what content there's going to be, things like that is going to be really interesting. Because for all of these new actuators and everything that we talk about, if we talk about toys for like penises and stuff, still most of those are aimed specifically at the content for the. Oh, there we go. Okay. I need to not put my hands in front of hip tracker. So, anyways, for penis-related stroker toys and stuff, almost all of those are focused solely on video sync. Like it's just watch a video and your toy moves along with the video. The end. And that is what those manufacturers are obsessed with right now.
Right. Interactive porn.
Yeah, to get a little bit into the businessy weeds here too, that's where a lot of actual AI usage is coming into porn right now. Not to actually, yes, there is the AI to make the porn, but it turns out that AI models are extremely good. And this is not Gen AI, this is classifier AI.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very easy to make a model that tracks and spits out the movement scripts for porn. And so there's all these companies right now that are manufacturing toys that are also trying to create their own AI models to encode porn for their toys. Which is it's this weird little cyberpunk kind of thing going on. And it's kind of funny because in the end it's all like, and it's just so this porn can jack you off. But isn't that the way most sci-fi ends, in weirdly horrible human terms?
With a $900 blowjob suitcase, yes.
Yeah, the holodeck that becomes real that people just use for sex stuff.
Yep.
That's where we're headed.
Yeah, the sci-fi trope of zero gravity fucking, basically.
Well, advances are being made in the fields of like zero gravity fucking as well. And like, how many people are realistically going to use that? Like, I think that humanity's fascination with sex is extravagant, and that there will constantly be new ways to stimulate yourself and to get off.
I mean, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but like as a dealer of sex toys, as someone with an affiliate link, a lot of folks who do not make lewd content, do not make porn, come to me and like, I would like to use this to buy myself a vibrator for the first time. Like that is something that is becoming much more widely accepted. And there's a lot to it. There's the community, there's Twitter, there's social media, there's TikTok even. Like it's the widespread like sort of, because I know like in the 70s and 80s people had sex toy parties and like, you know, here, buy this thing, it's gonna be good for you. But like I think there is kind of breaking the wall that this is something that is like only perverts have, basically. I think that's the biggest like the biggest change I've seen in the last couple of years.
Makes it less tawdry.
Exactly. It's an actual health device at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into conferences and app stores and things like that, you call this sexual wellness. You don't call it sex.
Exactly.
Yeah, you relate it back to health.
That's how we are classified on Spotify, actually. We're health and sexual wellness. Follow us on Spotify, by the way, chat.
Yes, Atra is amazing at like making this podcast accessible on so many different platforms. I'm very lucky. I give my opinion about things and then turn up. And
behind every good podcast is an opinionated British lady. All right, chat. Last call for questions. All right, so please get those in, because the depths is generally about 2.5 hours, and we just hit the 2-hour mark. I do have a couple more prepared questions. I'll just those like we kind of covered this, but I'm just gonna go through it again. What's a Teledildonics project that made you go, okay, this is too much, even for me?
So one of the more popular projects that I get asked to do and always reject is shock collars. Buttplug doesn't actually support any sort of electrostimulation hardware, be it shock collars, eStim hardware, TENS, whatever else, because a couple reasons. I mean, first off, I developed this software for a range of people, It's the widest range of people possible, and therefore, um, it's really hard to design in the safety of from everything from vibrators to eSTEM. Also, the way that we can, once again, going back to that idea of how we communicate what touch is,
Mhm.
communicating that via for eSTEM is even more difficult. Like, it's hard for me to build something that's like, okay, well, it does this for vibration and this for strokers and then this for eSTEM too. It's like it's another thing entirely. So it's not to say it can't be done. It's just I'm not the best person to do it.
Right.
But also in terms of the shock collars and things like that, there's so much variability from body to body in terms of the interaction of this hardware that it's hard for me to feel safe going, oh yeah, I'm just going to write software that shocks people wherever they put the collar and it's going to be safe and they're going to be okay. Like I realize that there are people that are out there that do that. There are projects out there like OpenShock that are exactly that. And for developers that are comfortable doing that, well, they can. I'm just not one of them.
More power to
So,
you, honestly. Because
yeah, I
yeah.
just like
Literally.
you all go over there and do your thing, and that's cool. And I will point people at it. And I should say, if you are interested in eSTEM stuff, I will always recommend Joanne's Reviews, another British lady. She does fantastic work on eSTEM education, has a wonderful community. It's not to say that the stuff doesn't happen. Like, it certainly does. It's just I personally can't do it. Or I don't feel comfortable doing it. So that's kind of one point where it's like I really try to stay out of any sort of hardware that is like pain related or power play related. Like you can certainly do psychological power play or emotional power play with vibrators and stuff too. Like it's
Yes.
not that big of a deal. But when it gets down to like eSTEM autobond, like technologically mediated bondage, things like I've had people that are like, yeah, can you hook my poppers up to this game? It's like, no.
No, absolutely not. No.
I want no part in this, thank you. So it's like, and they're gonna go somewhere to do it. I'm not like saying, well, and you can never do it or anything else. And I'm not trying to kink shame or anything else. It's just like as a developer, I have to think about
Safety.
safety and how I feel about doing what I do and what I own when I do that. And there are limits there. Yeah.
Your kink is not my liability, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's always the case. I want to make sure that people stay as safe as possible with the stuff that I do.
Because especially in sort of the US, which can be famously litigious, that if something were to happen with an eSTEM sort of plugin, for example, it may end up at your door.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I do this for free.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't
Thank you for your service.
I don't really want to deal with any more lawsuits than I absolutely have to.
Yeah. Mystique, did you have any other questions for qdot?
No. I sort of interrupted and yelled them whenever they came to me, so
I had one, I guess, sort of final question for you, which is we've touched on this also, but just sort of expand on it. Buttplug is a cult hit among live streamers and their fans on campsites. Did you envision this would be a use of your project when you started out? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I did. I started this specifically with that idea where it was like, going back to what I talked about earlier of let's change the paradigm of model viewer or model client interaction. And let's start at the hardware, because the thing is too, it's like you think about tippable hardware on those interactions too, where it's like, okay, well, now you've got the chat room and the video and a way to give money that makes a toy go off. And really that's it. That's where we're ending. And the interesting part about that is too, it's like that's a model that or that is a strategy that models created for themselves. The first tip activated toys didn't actually hook up to computers. They were audio based. So what happened was that it was like late 2000s.
Oh yes, with
Yeah.
the things with the aerial, the eggs with the aerials that stick
Yeah,
out.
or like the Oh My Bods or whatever else, where like it had a little microphone in it. So tips would trigger a sound, and that sound would trigger the toy. And so models made this for themselves, and then toy companies are like, wait, we can do that too. Now there's a whole bunch of IP issues around this. Like there are patents for tip activated toys and all, that make it very difficult to write software for this or to write software specifically for that usage. So I wanted to go outside that model anyways, though, because it's like that model has also been done to death. So, so what could we do with games, with apps, with whatever else to facilitate better experiences for content creators and content consumers? And I think we've done a pretty good job so far. I mean, it's certainly like it's the industry of that has to grow around us too. Like when Buttplug started like back in 2017 and stuff, it was hard to find a place to stream video games while you were also doing lewd stuff. And there's been services born and die within that time too, because I mean, you've got your big ones, your MFCs, your Chatterbaits. We've now got OnlyFans, Fansly, and all. But then there was other video game based ones too that some have lived, some have not. So it's becoming a larger thing, but it's still not nearly as old as the video text UI thing. And so I still feel like we're early days on it.
Yeah, I mean that sort of thing even existed, back before computers were really a common household thing. Like I remember, we used to get videotapes from England back when I lived in South Africa, and sometimes, at the end of the video, there would be a recording of, that my granddad had forgotten to wipe over, of like, your private dancer will now dance for you, and you have to have like a literal landline telephone and be dialing things in to give her money.
Oh, phone sex, yeah.
That's
No, not phone sex. The dancer was on a channel on TV.
Oh.
And you were on the phone along with like a bunch of other people.
It's just kind of a telethon style strip club. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I have never heard of that interface before. That's really interesting.
Really?
Huh.
They used to have it in the UK.
Wow. Huh. That's really interesting. Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, is most of the models that this stuff is built on can be traced back to different types of analog media or non-computational or whatever else. Like, or just like it's just what does it take to move just to the next platform and then get the money there and then we move again. So.
Yeah. And yeah, that was before computers, but I distinctly remember that being sort of something that I'd never encountered before, was, the recording of television of something where he was on the phone, and they can't hear you talk, but you sort of you crowdsource like tipping. I guess it comes out of your phone bill or something maybe, and the dancer would strip accordingly.
Sort of like a strip club caucus, I guess, or like
a strip
election.
club QVC.
Yeah. Strip club telethon. Padunk, who just dropped in, has a question about VR interaction. Yeah, so could we just go over just really briefly again about the mesh sort of collision thing and like how that works in VR chat for folks doing this?
So for people that are interested in this, the things you're going to want to Google are DPS, or dynamic penetration system. It's not the thing you'll buy, but it is the thing you'll see most of the videos of. The thing you'll want these days is SPS, which I wonder if what that first S is. I think maybe it's Senki's because it's Senki as the dev on it. But anyways, SPS is the modern version of it. Um,
Google
so
says it stands for Scottish Prison Service.
oh
Oh, that's
wow,
definitely
that's a
it.
different kink
Super plug
completely.
shader is what it's for.
Okay. So anyways, what happens is you can put something on your avatar and someone else can like these are and the I should have explained it this way the first time. So there are two parts to a penetration system in VR chat, a penetrator and an orifice. And one person puts the penetrator on some part of their body and another person or on their avatar and another person puts the orifice on part of their avatar. And then when you put the two together, the orifice sort of subsumes the penetrator so that it looks like it's actually going into it. Now, there are extra parameters you can set. So it's like the orifice, whatever the orifice is on, can spread out or anything as the penetrator moves in. Like the safe for work cartoon capability we usually give as an example is the ability to pick your nose in VR. So it's like your nose, like you stick your finger in and your finger disappears and your nose gets bigger. That's the nice way of doing it, but we all know what people are really using it for.
Yeah.
So like what you would do is like you would put an orifice on your mouth or your butt or your ear or wherever else you want it, and then your penetrator could be a virtual penis, or it could be your nose, or it could be your fist, or whatever. And then once penetrator meets orifice, then the two do their thing, and you have a nice visual representation. And thanks to all the data that we can get out from these systems now, we can tell how much depth a penetrator is within an orifice, pass that data back out, and control toys with it. So that, in a nutshell, is how all of this works. In terms of how easy it is to set up, a lot of avatars come with this pre-set up now. It's just kind of a feature that they ship with. Otherwise, there are many, many communities that can tell you how to do this.
And just people on Fiverr who will install the systems for you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's popular enough now that it's becoming sort of a standard expected thing, which is pretty cool. I mean, because it's like this did not exist before 3 years ago. Like I think like we're like 3 years in 2 weeks or something was when the first DPS version came, or Rayliv's DPS came out, and that was a mind blowing time. Like it really did revolutionize VR sex. And that's the cool part is like there's just so much. This is still such a new platform, even though it's been. I mean, VR chat's been around for 9 years now. Yeah, but even so, there's just still so much left to figure out and interaction styles left to do and stuff that we've still got a lot of development left to do.
It's shocking, like how old it is, and like there hasn't been a successor yet, honestly. But people continue to do great things with it.
It's hard to make a virtual world. I've done it. I don't know if I'd do it again. I'm happy to just use other people's now. I mean, but Second Life is still around too, and still getting something like 1 million active users a month. So yeah, like they're popular where they exist. But it's it's a big difficult problem to put one together.
Right. Yeah, so this has been the Devs Podcast with our host qdot. This was a fascinating discussion.
Our host?
I'm a host now. This is my podcast. Okay.
With our guest qdot. This has been a fantastic discussion on like all things like sex toys, the industry, the world around it, the logic. We've covered so many things today, and like it really is such a wonderful discussion. Yeah, we will return next week with another episode that we'll tease shortly. But before we go, how about we have our guests do some plugs? So qdot of buttplug.io, what plugs do you have for us?
Okay, well, first off, if you're interested in the library, go to buttplug.io. There's information on kind of what you can do with the software. You'll also want to check out Interface Central. I really need to redo our websites at interface.com/central, but it's linked from buttplug.io. Obviously, IOST Index, iostindex.com. This is your home for every single piece of computer-controlled sex hardware ever known. It's a great place to figure out, like, okay, what kind of form factor of toy do I want? What are my price ranges? Things like that. Constantly updated. xtoys.app, really cool remote control app, works with a whole bunch of toys, just like Buttplug. So if you just want to control someone else's toy and you don't want to use an app, or you're both using different toys or something like that, that's where you go. My YouTube channel at youtube.buttplug.io, buttplugging with qdot. I am trying to get back to actually making more videos on it. Otherwise, I am qdot or buttplug.io on Twitter/X/ whatever we're calling it, or buttplug.engineer on Blue Sky, or qdot at buttplug.engineer on Mastodon, and I think that's it. Oh yeah, and there's my Discord at discord.buttplug.io if you have questions. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Discord.io.buttplug, was it?
Discord.buttplug.io.
Okay.
Yes.
Buttplug.io. If you are thinking of getting involved with any of this, please join that Discord. It sounds amazing. I'm about to join it myself. There we go. Yeah. And before we actually go, Lady Mystique, any plugs for us?
You can find all of my links at ladymystique.tv. 3D Mystique is in production. She is very nearly complete and will be making her debut soon.
Fantastic. Lady Mystique, thank you as always for joining me on this podcast and adding your insight and your lovely, lovely humor to our discussion. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for continuing to put up with me. I appreciate you too.
And I've been your host, Atramentum_X, Rise streamer and YouTuber and voice actor now, apparently. You can find everything you need to know about me at atramentum.inc, INK. We are going weekly for the month of March on the Devs podcast, so we'll be back again next week. I don't know which site yet. We're still talking about it. It might be Twitch, it may be Fansly, but we're going to leave you with a teaser of next week's episode. But otherwise, say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.